All right, welcome to the House Environment and Transportation Committee, Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. We will start with House Bill 695, Delegate Johnson, Green and Renewable Energy Efficiency for Nonprofits Loan Program and Fund Establishments. And we have some guests from the Appropriations Committee joining us as well. Delegate Johnson, please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members. What this bill is, it tends to solve a pain point for nonprofits. What it does is that a lot of the nonprofits, small nonprofits, have trouble with their utility bills, and from that, the buildings that they're in, they're having trouble with upfront cost to go green or have some energy assistance with the building. What the bill does is it provides a no interest loan for solar and energy upgrades for small nonprofits. And when I say small nonprofits, I mean nonprofits that have a budget of less than $1 million. And this bill is going to require that nonprofit to take those savings and put it back into the pot so that it could help other nonprofits that are coming up behind it. This bill is fiscally responsible, it's climate forward-looking, and it allows nonprofits to make sure that the dollars that they have budgeted are actually going to the community and for their mission. The bottom line is that this takes the risk away from nonprofits. It allows them to go green. It strengthens communities, and it moves Maryland's climate goals forward with fiscal discipline. And for all those reasons, I ask for a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the bill sponsor? Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So who pays for this?
So the money comes out of CEF.
Okay. So there's been a lot of discussion about CEF and what it should be and what it should be allocated for and if we should take from it. Like with the state of energy costs right now, like why would we want to take from CEF to cover nonprofits?
So like I said, Delegate, and thank you for the question. Like I said, why we would do that is because it helps those nonprofits, number one. But number two, and it helps those nonprofits that are in, the smaller nonprofits that are in those buildings that are not energy efficient, right? So we're essentially knocking out two birds with one stone. And then also what happens is that those nonprofits are also, once they get those savings from the energy assistance or the energy savings, they're putting that money back into the pot. So it's really no risk to the nonprofit and to the fund.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Delegate Frazier-Hidalgo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple of questions, I guess partially to follow up with Delegate Grammer's question. So it establishes, so there's would be a $5 million withdrawal or use from CEF to help fund this and get this started. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's a one-time?
That's a one-time fee.
And where does that money come from? The Strategic Energy Investment Fund?
That comes from the Strategic Energy Fund.
Okay, so that's not like from the state, from the general fund or anything?
No, that's money that's not coming from the general fund.
I'm sorry, what was the name of that again, that fund?
That is the Energy
Strategic Energy
yes, investment fund. I'm
so
sorry.
Strategic Energy Investment
Yes.
Fund. Okay,
Yes,
I just wanted
I'm
to make
sorry.
sure we knew where the money
Yes.
would be allegedly coming from. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Delegate Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate, for bringing this bill. I know because you're not on the committee, we're not privy to see. Mainly, it's all favorable. There was favorable with amendments from the Maryland Clean Energy Center asking to allow the Maryland Clean Energy Center to administer the fund while holding, managing, investing, and reinvesting the fund as needed through the Climate Catalyst Capital C3 fund. Have you talked to them about this, and are you amenable to their? I'm happy to forward this to you.
Yes, could you forward to me?
Yes.
But in reference to that, I had a conversation with the senator last night, Senator Kagan, that has brought this bill forward the last 4 years. And she said that she is, and I will be amenable to the amendments.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. We do have a virtual favorable amendment witness, Catherine Magruder from the Maryland Clean Energy Center. You're on mute, Kathy. Kathy, you're on mute. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kathy Magruder. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Clean Energy Center. We're here to request your favorable support with amendment for House Bill 695, and we thank the delegate for his sponsorship. This bill has been introduced several times by Senator Kagan and passed each time in the past 3 years in the Senate. This bill would create a dedicated fund for us to assist nonprofits in making energy improvements to reduce their energy costs and to help achieve greenhouse gas emission goals. The Clean Energy Center is experienced in these types of projects and lending, and we are very interested in taking on this responsibility. To answer Delegate Boyce's question, we do support the amendments. I am not going to take up a lot of your time other than to say that we hope you will give this bill a favorable report. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the Clean Energy Center? Okay, thank you. That concludes House Bill 695. We'll turn to House Bill 629. Delegate Johnson, Maryland Energy Administration Study on Land-Based Wind Energy. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Mr. Chair, can I bring up my panel, please? Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members, once again, Delegate Johnson, for the record, here in strong support of HB 629. Right now, Maryland stands at a crossroad when it comes to land-based wind. We don't have any real solid data on wind and how it works here in the state of Maryland. And there is a conflict with the military and military radar systems. This bill, this is stalling projects, frustrating communities, and slowing down investment. This bill is simple yet strategic. MEA would like to study, or we would like MEA to study wind potential for the state, identify the best locations for land-based wind, and learn how other states have balanced wind development and military operations. The bottom line is that we can't manage as a legislator, as a legislature, what we have not measured. This study gives us facts and data. For all those things, I would ask for a favorable report on this study. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much for the opportunity to testify. My name is Jamie DeMarco. On behalf of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, we urge a favorable report. Land-based wind is an affordable, abundant, deployable energy resource that we have in this state that is currently not being deployed because Maryland and our elected officials have made clear that the state is closed to business. This is a study bill. I know there's a lot of study bills coming before the committee this year, but this is a study bill that we think, if passed, would have a real-world impact because it would send a signal to the industry that we want in-state generation in a way that we didn't 13 years ago when these issues came to a head. Maryland has land-based wind in the western part of the state. We have about 245 megawatts. And it's very affordable. Land-based wind costs about, the levelized cost of energy is about $49. Compare that to a new gas turbine, which would be about $74. So it's 50% more expensive to build gas than to build land-based wind. This is extremely affordable. And so while we have projects built in the western part of the state on ridgetops, when we speak to the industry, no developer is even looking at the Eastern Shore, because 13 years ago, a project was proposed that conflicted with Pax River, and it was shut down and driven out of town. And everyone has taken the lesson loud and clear. Don't try to build in Southern Maryland or on the Eastern Shore. A lot has changed in 13 years. There's new technology. Turbines are bigger. They can be built economically farther from Pax River. Pax River has set new precedent in its agreement with ongoing wind turbines like Dominion's so that they turn off when Pax River needs to do certain tests. There's a lot that's changed. This bill is starting the thawing process of looking at land-based wind on the Eastern Shore, which is a tremendous in-state generation source of electricity, but we don't know how big, and that is the question. This bill simply has MEA answer the question, how much electricity could we generate in-state from land-based wind? We urge a favorable report.
Thank you. First questions from Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for the bill. So, since I represent Pax River, and I represent the Range Directorate, and I've been doing wind over there for some 20 years, please explain to me how wind turbines on the Eastern Shore will or will not affect the Adams radar system.
Will or will not?
I want to know the answer.
Yeah.
Will wind turbines on the Eastern Shore affect the Adams radar system at Pax River?
Well, that's what the study is for.
We've studied this before, and with all due respect, because I've been spending 20 years doing this with the clearances that understand that, and I understand where CCAN's coming from was the wind turbine at Crisfield Harbor. We understand how the wind generation was causing flutter, and we have come up with, I agree, new technologies, but our technology is getting better at radar and radar detection. Pax River is the third largest employer in the state. DOD is one of the top two, how would I word this? Top two revenue producers in the state. We employ thousands of people at high-paced salaries. So the opportunity when they put this before us was the opportunity to move the Adams radar system to the West Coast. Unfortunately, on the West Coast, there's no water, so you can't test over water. You would have set the entire system down. So when I hear things like, oh, we can put wind on the Eastern Shore, we can put solar on the Eastern Shore too, and look what the farmers are facing. So simultaneously, I'd ask you if you should do a little, I would ask you to please, with your CCAN friends here, to do a little bit of homework to understand the viability of radar systems and the technology that exists over there in a proper manner. That's my request. So I said, if we don't understand what the Adams radar system does and how that affects wind and circulation and motion, then, you know, I have a lot of questions about this bill, but thank you.
May I respond?
Sure.
Thank you for the question, Delegate. There are ways in which wind turbines affect the Adams radar system, which, like you said, is extremely sensitive. What Dominion and Pax River have agreed to is a contract where, when needed, Dominion will turn their offshore wind turbines off so that the Pax River can do their testing.
You just said offshore, now you're on inshore.
Right, but they both spin similarly. They have similar effects on Adams, and they're both, the far eastern part of the Eastern Shore and the Dominion project are similar distances away from Pax River. So there's some precedent that has now been set, and we're hoping, this bill again doesn't mention Pax River, doesn't direct it, it just has MEA look at land-based wind, but we think that there are new approaches that can allow projects to exist. 13 years ago, Pax River asked for a 46-mile radius around their site for no land-based wind. At the time, with our technology, that was the only place where it was economically viable. It's now possible to build outside of that 46-mile radius that they requested, but no developers are looking at that because of the signal the state had given.
That is correct, and I understand the 46-mile range too, because when you get 46 miles offshore, that's where this continental shelf comes in, and you can't put wind turbines out there because it becomes too deep in the water. We also have to consider, when we're looking at the offshore wind site, we spent years negotiating to have a precise site where the wind turbines could be placed offshore that would not cause conflict with hypersonic, supersonic weapons testing, all kinds of stuff that I don't want to really go into. And I want to start putting them up there, and you would be considering doing a study that could risk thousands of jobs and money that the state depends upon. I'm done. Thank you.
Delegate Healy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, delegate from Southern Maryland. Appreciate that, because I was here when all that happened, when we had all that debate. And my question is really for the sponsor of the bill, because that bill actually was on the floor. I mean, it was not dealt with in committee. We didn't find out about all these conflicts until it was almost ready to become law. And a lot of the material, the information that we got, we had to take on trust because a lot of the information was classified. I don't know how you could do a study that involves this kind of sensitive activity if the DOD and the federal government will not cooperate because it's classified. They're doing very sensitive stuff at Pax River. So I guess my question is, how does this study, who is doing the study and who's providing the information about this?
So, yeah.
The study is being conducted by MEA, and it's only answering one question with the sponsor's amendments, it's only answering one question. How much potential is there for in-state generation through land-based wind in Maryland? It's not looking at any other question.
But that potential is severely limited if we don't know. We can't study what we don't know. I mean, if the information is being withheld from us by it being top secret stuff,
So,
how do we study it?
thank you for the question. Even if they aren't able to know the classified information of why wind turbines can't be placed in certain places, they can still communicate with Pax River and say, where do you need turbines not built? And then just take that map from Pax River and with that as a given, map out what the potential could look like. Thank you for the question.
Delegate Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As someone that was involved in that project, I didn't realize it had been that long ago. But that took hundreds of hours of my life that I'll never get back in planning and zoning meetings. And then at the 11th hour, after we come up with our proposal for our zoning ordinance, and everybody in the county was mad with everybody, Pax River come in and said, no, it's a no-go. So the first thing in this study should be, where can it go and where should we study it? And the other thing that hasn't come up is NASA has some real concerns about the windmills in offshore, because NASA has presence in Wallops Island, Virginia, has grown increasingly grown, and SpaceX has just made a major investment in land there that they're coming to Wallops Island. And Wallops Island employs a lot of people in Maryland. So may not be as big as Pax River, but to Wycomico, Worcester, and Somerset counties, it's a big deal what goes on at Wallops Island, Virginia. And I think you need that on your radar also.
So delegate, was that a question or just a comment?
Isn't that so?
Well, I just wanted you to consider Wallops Island. I hadn't heard you all mention that. Is it on your?
Thank you.
Have you thought about that?
We have not looked specifically at Wallops Island. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. The study does direct MEA to look at where appropriate sites are and aren't for building land-based wind. So you're exactly right. The first part of the study is figuring out where could it go, where could it not go, and that process would involve talking to folks like Wallops Island and SpaceX. So thank you for your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Anderson. If you want hours of your life back from public meetings, you're probably in the wrong job. Glad you're here. I do not see any further questions for this panel. I think we have another in-person favorable witness, Rico Albuquerque from IBEW. Is he here?
Rico unfortunately got held up in negotiations, but IBEW supports the legislation.
Great. All right. Thank you both. We have a virtual witness, favorable, Mid-Atlantic Renewable Energy Coalition, Evan Vaughn.
Hello, can you see and hear me?
We can. Please go ahead.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the sponsor for introducing this legislation. We strongly support House Bill 629. My name is Evan Vaughn. I'm Executive Director of the Mid-Atlantic Renewable Energy Coalition. We represent wind developers, solar developers, and battery storage developers and owner-operators that are active in Maryland. As I think the previous panel discussed, wind technology has improved dramatically over the last even 5 to 10 years, with more powerful turbines able to produce more electricity per turbine with fewer overall turbines. And so given the regional market dynamics you're all familiar with PJM saying that we need more electricity, particularly in the wintertime when wind performs very well relative to other resources, it feels like high time to take another look at this resource in the state. As folks on the last panel alluded to, a developer is going to take into consideration these previous concerns, both from Pax River and Wallop Island, and they will not necessarily want to spend time and development resources trying to navigate those complexities. And so we see this legislation as a helpful way to reassess where we are, including those real considerations around those facilities, which we recognize are important to the state of Maryland, and to provide some clarity about where there may be better deconflicted areas to develop wind projects in Maryland, which would go a long way to promote affordability and reliability in the state's electricity supply. I'll just say briefly as a closing remark that the Department of Defense does work in close coordination with developers as well as with the FAA to evaluate airspace and radar issues affiliated with wind projects. And so we think this bill will just give a little bit of a jump start to the development process to say, yeah, hey, this is worth looking at again. So thank you again for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I do not see any questions for our virtual witness, so appreciate you being here. That concludes the bill here on House Bill 629. We will turn to House Bill 648. It's a departmental. I think Justin Hayes from the Department of Human Services is here. Office of Home Energy Programs, Uniform Redetermination Process Age. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, and members of the committee. My name is Justin Hayes, and I serve as the Acting Director of the Office of Government Affairs within the Department of Human Services. I'm joined today by my colleague, Rigel Moore, Director of the Office of Home Energy Programs. We respectfully urge your favorable report of House Bill 648. DHS is driven by the 12 Moore-Miller administration values, and we believe that this bill exemplifies those values. HB 648 would streamline access to our energy assistance programs for adults between the ages of 60 and 64. Currently, our Office of Home Energy Programs, known as OHEP, provides simplified enrollment for energy assistance customers who are 65 years and older through a uniform redetermination process. Customers that do not qualify for this process must either reapply for energy assistance every year or may be automatically enrolled if they receive nutritional or cash assistance. The uniform redetermination process reduces paperwork, burden, and red tape faced by seniors when applying for energy assistance. Currently, qualifying households with members aged 65 or older only need to submit a simplified one-page form rather than the standard OHEP application. House Bill 648 would expand the availability of the uniform redetermination process to households with members ages 60 to 64. This change would align Maryland's law with federal guidance on providing energy assistance to vulnerable populations, such as households with members aged 60 and older. The Moore-Miller administration is committed to leaving no one behind, and that includes Maryland seniors. We estimate that more than 1,700 Maryland households would newly qualify for the uniform redetermination process under House Bill 648. Passage of this legislation will ensure that eligible households with seniors are enrolled and receive energy assistance before peak seasonal demand, preventing dangerous utility shutoffs and helping to stabilize energy costs for low-income seniors. We appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony, urge a favorable report, and welcome any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, explain it to me. Is the redetermination, are they automatically determined to continue to be on the program? Is that how this works?
So
that's correct.
So essentially, You have to be a prior year recipient. So if this House bill was to pass, anyone who received a benefit this year, who's on a fixed income, our disability would be determined automatically for OHEP benefits, yes.
So if you're 59 or below, you have to be redetermined. If you're 60 or above, if the bill passes, you would be considered to be automatically re-subscribed into the program.
Absolutely. It's a simplified application process. So it's a one-page application that gets sent to the recipient and just pretty much ask, is anything in your household, has it changed? They say no, we get that mailed back to our locals, and we do some automated processing. So it's very streamlined, very efficient.
All right, thank you.
Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So essentially, by dropping the age, you're going to have potentially more people qualifying for assistance. My understanding is it's already stretched thin, that people are getting less money now than less help now than they were several years ago. So what will this mean going forward to the existing people? Will they be getting less money as a result of this change in the age?
Thank you for the question. This bill only applies to the redetermination process. It doesn't necessarily expand the pool of customers who would be eligible. It simply makes it more streamlined process for those individuals between ages of 60 and 64. So it doesn't change the qualifications. It doesn't change eligibility at all. It just enables that age range to be eligible for redetermination.
But I mean, I understand that, but potentially, unless the fund is increased, it would still have a more negative effect on the ones who are currently in the system.
Not necessarily. Just to be clear, anyone who will be eligible from 60 to 64, they were already eligible in our program as it stands today. So they meet the income eligibility and they're able to get standard OHEP assistance. It's just that they will be able to apply in a more streamlined way, and it helps our elder population.
Thank you.
Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we currently have the program that was initiated under law back when Hogan was governor, if I remember correctly, or if I'm reading correctly, correct, for this program between anybody over the age of 65?
I believe that's the case, but
I'm just reading the stats. Yeah. So basically, if I look at statistics from the Office of Home Energy Policy, in 2025, we had 19,195, I'm stuttering. That's a bad thing for me. 19,156 participants or possible participants. It's over 17,000 enrollees. So we have a 92% participation rate at the present time. Now, following on Delegate Jacobs' conversation, if we have a 92% participation rate this time and we only have so much money and you expand it to 60 to 64, how could there not possibly be a drop in what an individual could receive if the pot remains about the same? Or is the pot going to expand to take into account those between the ages of 60 and 64?
Well, again, this doesn't change the eligibility, and so therefore the pool of those applicants wouldn't grow. These are folks that have already applied, so they're merely getting redetermination from year to year. So there's nothing in this bill that would change the size of the fund, change the pool of eligible customers. It simply allows those customers between 60 and 64 to get the easier redetermination process to make that the next year's application simpler. And they would have already been approved in the prior year.
Okay, thank you.
So prior year customers would not add to the total, I guess, is the best way to
Justin, I think what my colleagues are asking is, because right now people get bumped off of the program because redetermination is difficult, and this will make it easier for them to stay, that will mean you'll have more people in the program going forward. Now, some of us probably think that's a good thing, but I think they're asking, what happens to the size of the benefit or the size of the fund as a result of that? There'd be no point in doing this if the exact same pool of people today would continue to be in the program tomorrow, because clearly there'd be no point in doing it. So what would be the effect on the benefit or the fund from the fact that we'll probably have more people staying on the benefit, which again, I think is a good thing, but others may disagree.
The intention of the bill is to make it simpler for those customers. It doesn't envision the size of the pool growing. To your question, if there are more customers and the amount allocated to that fund does not grow, the benefit would go down, simple math. So our goal here, though, is just to make this a simpler process
for those customers who are eligible for redetermination.
Okay, do you have any estimate of how many kind of drop off just because of the complexity, not because their eligibility has changed, just because of the complexity of the current process?
No, we do not, but for a fiscal impact that we do foresee is for our mailing notices. These notices have to be mailed out at 69 cents per printed notice. We're looking at about $1,200. But again, just to reiterate, customers today, if this legislation wasn't to pass, they can apply via standard application and receive the same benefit because they are of 200% of the federal poverty level.
Okay, Vice Chair Guyton.
Thank you. Following up on the chair's question, and he hit at most of what I wanted to ask you, do you have any specific numbers or percentages of how many people this might affect? If they had gone through the standard application process between 60 and 65, approximately how many of them might have fallen out of the program versus the numbers of people who are redetermined, how often do they fall out of the program or grow out of the program?
I don't believe I have that at hand, but I can get that to you. And I can also find the data to respond to the chair's question as to how many individuals may not have been able to get this redetermination because of lack of documents, which is one of the higher echelons of failure to complete the process.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that all that information would be really helpful to the committee.
Absolutely.
Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious why the age 60? I've been looking through the documents here. Why 60? Why not 55? Why not 50? Why that age in particular? What makes that so significant as opposed to any other age?
It specifically would put us in alignment with the federal law on this topic. So we're just trying to put ourselves in parallel with the federal law that dictates LIHEAP for eligibility.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you both. I don't see any additional questions. So that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 648. We will bring up our shadow committee member, Delegate Chisholm, House Bill 521, Electric Companies and Gas Companies Customer Bill Surcharge Repeal. Welcome back to what I feel like is your own committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I greatly appreciate that. I feel very comfortable in this committee. Thanks again, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair. For the record, I'm Delegate Brian Chisholm here to present HB 521. HB 521 looks to do three things. One, stop the Empower program immediately. Two, stop the Empower surcharge immediately. Number three, pay Empower off. For the good of the order, just so the committee knows, and I'm sorry if this is something common knowledge to you, but I know that energy is new in your committee. In 2008, the state of Maryland came out with this Empower program to help create more efficient homes and businesses. And what they did is said, listen, we're going to go to the utilities. We're going to ask the utilities to pay for a lot of this, all these benefits up front, to the tune of $800 to $1 billion, or $800 million to $1 billion. We're going to pay you 9% interest. I don't know how they got that deal, but that is the greatest deal going. That's why, you know, utilities or electric company are on the monopoly board where they are, because they're making a ton of money. I'm not here to demonize BG&E, but they got a great deal. And the problem is our ratepayers have been paying that for almost 15 to 20 years. I think that needs to be paid off immediately. I applaud the people that put in HB 864 a couple years ago that kind of renegotiated that interest rate. But essentially, that's a high interest rate credit card that we ran all the way up, and then we've been making minimum payments for 15 years. We haven't really paid it down. I think the new total is like $720-some million. But in the 15 years, we have spent $4.6 billion. And of that, only $299 million has gone to low-income households. That's 6 to 7%. It was sold as this is going to help the low-income households. That's 6 or 7%. I'm not going to argue the benefits of what might have gone on with some of the businesses or some of the other residents, but that's really not helping the poor or the low-income residents of Maryland. And to pay that 9 or 10% interest, depending on the utility, OPC's finding in 2020 said that there was $55 million paid in just interest. That's the ratepayers paying it. The ratepayers that are hurting so bad right now. That was like 17% of that surcharge. Then HB 864 came out, like I said, it did try to adjust the rate, but it changed what we were actually going to do with the money. And it said, we are now going to try to retrofit low-income houses. DHCD did a report. In that report, this is what they found. There's 587,768 qualifying low-income households to which we're supposed to retrofit by HB 169 and HB 864. Only 78,574 have been served. There's 441,000 remaining. To meet the 2031 mandate that's in HB 169 and 864, they need to do 88,319 homes per year. That's a 4-time increase in capacity. And it's going to cost $7.7 billion. We can account for maybe $200 million to pay it. That leaves a $7.5 billion deficit, and guess who's going to pay it again? The ratepayers that are emailing your offices, the ratepayers that are contemplating whether they can stay here or not, businesses who are contemplating whether or not they can stay open. It also shifted our focus from our original lower emissions or greater efficiency to lower greenhouse gas emissions. How many of your ratepayers really care about the greenhouse gas emissions? Honestly. They care about their bills. They care about how hard it is to figure out how to pay their electric bill every month. That's what this bill aims to do, is take that off. That surcharge is getting bigger and bigger, and it's getting bigger because we passed a bill that says we need to pay it off, and I applaud that. Almost feel like a parent saying, yes, don't run up your credit card in college and just pay the minimum payment because you're going to get crushed on it. We are trying to pay it off. My ask is we use the CEF funds that are there now, and we pay it off with that. I read a couple newsletters recently, even from the Climate Action Network. This is what they said about that money being moved into the general fund. Governor Moore's 2027 budget proposal would draw $725 million from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, depleting the fund by 82% and leaving behind just $164 million. How ironic, that $725 million will pay off Empower today. I think that's a better use of our money, Mr. Chair. I think that this is a credit card that needs to be paid off. We need to stop running up bills that we cannot afford to pay, and we need to provide some real relief to our ratepayers. That's what this bill aims to do. Because I got moved up, I think my other testifier is missing, but I can handle it. With that, I ask for a favorable report.
Great. First question is from Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate. I just wondered if you had read the informational testimony submitted by the Public Service Commission on this bill.
If I remember correctly, they said that they would just go around this bill and find other ways to fund it.
Well, can I read you a paragraph from the letter and then and ask you to respond? It says, effectively, this bill will render the Public Utilities article silent as to how utilities recover Empower program costs from customers. The bill does not modify any part of the statute enabling Empower, so the utilities will still need to operate Empower programs and incur program costs. This means the Commission will need to determine how costs are recovered from ratepayers. Because the proposed legislation removes the requirement that Empower costs be listed as a separate item on a customer's utility bill, and I think we are for transparency in terms of listing those costs, and the Public Service Commission is saying because the proposed legislation would remove that requirement, utilities could propose and the Commission could approve recovery either through a surcharge or base rates. and then it would still show up in the bill. I added the last part, would still show up in the bill. So I just wondered if you could respond to that.
Yes, I appreciate the question. We do have a final reprint that I believe was sent over to the committee to stop all programs going forward. And in the bill, it actually says if the utilities would like to do something on a voluntary basis, they may continue to do that, but we would stop all programs going forward without any funding.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think a lot of people look at their Empower charge in their bill and they think it's funding something currently, but the reality is that the Empower fee is paying off a debt. Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's the money that was deferred. So we asked the utilities to pay a lot of this money up front. So they actually put money into supplies and to pay services to go out and start to do work on people's houses. And we just never paid it back. So we've been paying the interest on it, just like a minimum payment, like on a credit card is what I was saying. And they said, you know, the original intent when they came out with Empower was, well, we're going to get $2 back for every dollar we put in. I see stats, and to me, it's a counterfactual. To me, it's like saying my wife is beautiful because she's married to me. Is she married to me? Yes. Is she beautiful? Yes. Is it because she's married to me? No. It's hard to prove.
So it sounds like Empower is actually a loan payment that each ratepayer is paying on their bill. Is that correct?
And what gives me greater concern is the DHCD report that says we can't find the $7.5 billion that we're going to be required to put out in current funding mechanisms.
Usually loans have an interest rate. Is there an interest rate on these payments that we're accruing because we have this standing debt?
It was originally between 9 and 10%. Each utility, I'm assuming, negotiated their own rate. Like I know BG&E is at 9%, I think Pepco's at like 10%, but it's between 9 and 10%. What it is now with the latest legislation with HB 864, it said the new rate can't be anything more than their current debt rate.
Okay. There's been a discussion of SEEF funding. SEEF funding's been taken by the governor. There's a bill today that would create a program based on SEEF funding. There are a lot of options with what to do about energy rates, but it seems like if we take something off the table, for example, we use SEEF funding, pay it off, as you mentioned in your testimony, that's something we can create an immediate reduction in ratepayer rates for all ratepayers every month. If we were to maybe take your option of taking SEEF funding temporarily, pay this off, get rid of it. Is that right? We could see an immediate relief?
This is to pay the credit card off in full. And I think most importantly, the Strategic Energy Investment Fund is narrowly focused on energy. For the governor to take it and sweep it into a general account for the general budget, I think is not what it was intended to do.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Delegate, just for my clarity, the Empower surcharge that I see on my bill every month, and I think of you every month, that goes towards paying down that debt, but it also goes to current programs as well, right?
Right now, it's starting to currently pay it down and to current programs. For a long time, it wasn't going to pay it down. It was just paying the minimum payment.
Right. So a part of that surcharge every month does go to current programs. So when I think of it as going to current programs, it is going to current programs, just not in full.
Just not in full is correct.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that for me. Delegate Naraki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're always thinking about some of the same things, Mr. Chair. I'm thinking about current programs as well. Delegate, good to see you. So, and we are all definitely just wrapping our heads around this issue, but it's my understanding from some conversations that we've had, throughout the course of energy now being in our committee, that much of the low-hanging fruit inside of the Empower program, the easy-to-fix efficiency projects have already been done throughout the system. Many of the things that are left are the really expensive and really more difficult, more complex HVAC systems, things like that are more difficult to do. So my question to you is, I'm getting the sense that the marginal cost is likely starting to outweigh the marginal benefit here. Is that your sense of kind of what is left with Empower? I think we made great strides with many of the things that Empower initially did, but I'm just kind of curious if the marginal benefit is really worth the squeeze of what's left.
And I think you would have a hard time selling that to the general public today. And I agree with you when it was, we're going to go in and we're switch out people's LED lights, but in today's today's world, I think people, our constituents are smart enough to figure out what is energy efficient, what's not. One of the more, I guess, alarming things to me is the latest legislation was HB 864 was, we're going to electrify more of the state of Maryland, which means we're going to push more people off of natural gas and more onto the electric heat systems. Well, everybody that's getting crushed by bills right now is getting crushed because on an electric heat system, when you go below freezing, you go into emergency heat and your meter starts going like this. Number two, it puts a tremendous amount of strain on the grid that is already strained. So I think I don't know why we would want to go towards more electrification when natural gas is affordable and abundant. And that's what HB 864 in tune with Empower now looks to do. So it's amplifying a problem we're already staring down.
Thank you.
Delegate Frazier-Hidalgo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of questions for you, Delegate.
Yes.
Through your lifetime, I'm sure you've looked at balance sheets and trying to figure out, if something's profitable, and you're looking at the profits and you look at the expenses and you try and figure out, whether something's profitable or not. When bringing this bill, did you look at Empower to kind of see how much money we've spent and how much money we've saved?
Well, we've spent $4.6 billion, if I'm correct. And I've been told that we got $2.27 back for every dollar that we've invested, and we've saved all this. I just have a hard time quantifying how they figured that out, because I don't believe that most Marylanders think that the money they put towards Empower has actually paid them back, because I think, as you know, a very small percentage of people have actually taken advantage of Empower. If everybody took advantage of it, then it would be a straight one-to-one.
So let me give you a little example of measuring that balance sheet. If you take, let's just say, a traditional incandescent light bulb that uses, let's say, 60 watts, and you replace that with a subsidized through Empower LED bulb that uses, let's say, 9 watts, what is the percentage savings there?
My question is, what is the percentage savings for every Marylander? Because not every Marylander. Why wouldn't a Marylander take their own credit card then at 9% and buy a new LED? Has every Marylander gotten to take advantage of Empower?
Delegate, my simple question to you is, how much of a percentage of a savings is that? You're going from 60 to 9. Like, that's a pretty significant savings. And that would, if you replaced all your light bulbs in your house, that would have a significant savings on your your utility bill, would it not?
Do you think that the average Marylander can't change the light bulbs out in their own house?
I think that by changing and switching and encouraging folks to go to LED light bulbs, which were traditionally significantly more expensive, but now through Empower and other programs are much more affordable, and a lot of folks have gone and purchased them and replaced them. This is not a question of whether you can turn a light bulb on or off or screw a light bulb on in or out. What it's a question of is how much money is it saving? So you're saying it costs $14 billion or so for Empower. The savings to Maryland is over $16 billion. So when I say to you, you have to look at the spreadsheet. You can't just look at the expenses.
When you say Maryland, who
you
are
have to
you talking about? The
look at not only the expenses, Delegate, but you also, it's basic banking, right? It's basic, your checkbook. You have to look at expenses, but you also have to look at what you save from that. So that's my number one point, right? Which I think is very important, because there's a lot of talk about how much Empower costs, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of talk about how much money Empower saves. Saves through electric bills, saves through transmission costs, saves through continuing to build out of generation or storage, things that have been put off, projects that have been put off for one reason or another because we're using less electricity now than we did before. Because of programs like Empower. That's number one, right? That I just want to make sure we get to. And the number two piece, which I think is vitally important, not only is the cost savings, but something that you had mentioned earlier, which I think is very important to get the facts straight. Today, if you buy a heat pump, not like yesterday's heat pumps, Delegate, today's heat pumps are cold weather heat pumps. They will heat through electricity, not on emergency mode. They will heat down to below 0 degrees. What you're referring to is heat pump technology that's 8 to 10 years old now. It's yesterday's heat pump technology, not today's heat pumps. Today's heat pumps go below 0 degrees. I used to have an old heat pump like what you're talking about, and when I got below 40 degrees, they did not function very well, and I had to go to emergency heat, which used an enormous amount of electricity because it was direct. But these heat pumps, this is like new heat pump technology.
I
It's not what
understand
you're
SEER
talking about.
ratings. I understand heat
I
pumps.
just think it's important that you talk apples to apples. When you start saying heat pumps use emergency mode and they use all this electricity, that's not necessarily true. There's some truth to it, but it's not completely true, and it's not completely the whole story, is what I'm saying. And I'm finished with my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Let's remember to use question marks with our questions. So isn't that so? Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Delegate. I don't know, did Sarah Elder arrive, Woods Community Center?
No, but it's okay, I think.
Okay, we do have unfavorable in-person testimony from Josh Tolkien, Maryland Sierra Club.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Josh Tolkien on behalf of the Maryland chapter of the Sierra Club. In opposition, Empower Maryland has been one of the most successful energy efficiency and conservation and clean energy programs in the country. It is often held up as an example. Over the last 20 years, the Empower Maryland program has helped levelize energy usage, keeping it stable for the average Maryland resident and business, while energy usage has increased significantly in our neighboring states. To talk numbers, the program has saved $15.8 billion in lifetime savings compared to a cost of $4.6 billion. When we're talking about Empower, we have to understand that it's serving both individuals and the whole, providing options for people to purchase energy efficient light bulbs on one hand or appliances on the other hand. But the savings benefit all of us. Just like we all pay for power generation and we all pay for transmission, we're paying for a system that's helped reducing overall energy load, which means that we are avoiding significantly more expensive power plants or transmission upgrades. Every study has shown that the program is net positive. That is why continually the Public Service Commission and the utilities and advocates have all come together to do a program design that is both good for the environment, reduces energy bills, and is good for consumers. The programs are highly scrutinized to ensure cost effectiveness across all programs. So to be clear, for a program to be approved, it has to be part of a utility package which ensures cost effectiveness across the whole suite. Additionally, many of us are continuing to work to make sure that Empower does serve everybody in Maryland and makes the best use of the money available.
Thank you very much. I do not see any questions, so thank you. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 521. Colleagues, House Bill 647 was withdrawn, so we'll turn to our colleague, Delegate Long. House Bill 642, Electric Companies, Service Outages and Rate Increases Report on Customer Impact.
Great afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and fellow members of the best committee in the House Environment and Transportation Committee. I am Delegate Jeffrey Long, Jr. for the record, and I'm here asking for your favorable report and support of HB 642, which requires electric companies to submit annual reports to the PSC detailing geographic and demographic data on customers affected by certain service outages and rate increases. The reporting applies to outages lasting 2 hours or longer, scheduled maintenance outages, outages occurring during inclement weather events, and customers impacted by rate adjustments. Electric utilities operate within exclusive service territories under the oversight of the PSC. The structure demands sufficient transparency. Current reporting requirements do not consistently provide data at a level specific enough to assess patterns by geography or community characteristics. As a result, regulators and policymakers are limited in their ability to identify trends in outage duration, restoration timelines, or cost burdens that may vary across service areas. And thus, the impetus for HB 642 which will establish a standardized annual reporting framework of information from the previous year. This bill does not impose operational requirements, alter restoration priorities, or affect rate case determinations. Utilities already collect outage and consumer data through existing management and mapping systems, and this bill would ensure that additional relevant information is compiled in a format that supports meaningful oversight. I'm happy to dive in to answer further questions, and I request and ask for your support and report for HB 642. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Delegate Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for bringing the bill. I was looking through some of the testimony, and we really don't have a lot of opposition, but there's some informational testimony. And one of the themes I'm seeing there is that there's some concern that there's some ambiguities in the bill. Can you talk a little bit more about like what your intent is, and especially like the language you chose about like when rates are increased? You know, is this, I mean, 'cause we hear a lot of times, especially on the floor, that the PSC is who's setting the rates. Can you tell us a little more about that, elaborate on that, please?
Such a great question. I'm glad you asked. Thank you, good delegate. So let me first address and deal with the PSC informational testimony. I am working and crafting on some amendments to narrow that scope so they are aware of exactly what we mean by demographic and geography. For example, let's take Prince George's County. If we're seeing that Prince George's County, certain zip codes have experienced a record number of outages, or that entire radius we've seen, that particular zip code radius has experienced significant increase in their rates, as in their utility bills went up, or if we're looking at and seeing that it takes longer for service to be restored in certain zip codes, be it any zip code, be it a black and brown community, be it a majority community that is comprised of those outside that community and that racial demographic, we would still want that information as well too. And to address the second part, we've seen in information testimony, some folks say that we don't collect this data because they don't see it as meaningful and that it may be a breach of privacy. I do believe though that the PSC can differentiate exactly who is residing where in these zip codes to ensure that people aren't being unfairly targeted. Thank you.
Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegates, I'm reading through the bill and just reading through some of the testimony. So I have a community in my district that experiences power outages pretty frequently, and it's because this one telephone pole just constantly gets knocked down. They've moved the thing, they've actually put it behind a guardrail. Somehow people still figure a way to knock this thing down. Would there be any mechanism to for the power company to basically be able to say, hey, this is, in this circumstance, this is why this is occurring. It's not because there's something that we're doing wrong, it's because people are just driving kind of crazy. I'm just trying to wrap my head around like a circumstance like that.
Yes, I'm amenable to that. What my main goal here is transparency. Sure. We all have had constituents reach out to us probably in the past year, frustrated, of course, whether it be a natural disaster, inclement weather, or just the fact that their bills are high, right? They've had issues with just the fact of electricity, period, be it outage being restored, being it regular scheduled maintenance. What I want to do is here is increase transparency just so they're aware that it's not just perhaps happening just to them, and in the event that maybe there is some negligence here, the PSC has the appropriate data to deal with it accordingly and meaningful oversight.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Guyton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for bringing this bill. I believe what you're trying to do with this, and I applaud that effort. I do have a question, though. You mentioned that you might be working to define some of these issues resolving what demographic information meant, that sort of thing. I wonder if you could speak more to that, and whether I'm currently not sure, and I actually hope they don't, have my, age, my income, my race, my disability status in my utility file, right? Do they have those things now? And if not, what would you be asking them very specifically to collect?
I would be asking for one thing that they do have, and that is your service address, and that is your zip code. And we can tell based upon zip codes sometimes exactly if there are certain areas that have been disproportionately affected compared to others. I've got great friends in Baltimore City who have experienced varying differences in service and in fluctuation of their bills. And many can say they've not been home as long or as often as others have been in certain neighborhoods and certain parts. And so although I do respect the fact that people would not want to share private information such as race, income, ethnicity to ensure that people aren't being unfairly targeted and disproportionately affected, I do believe that we can gather, appropriately gather, as referenced in the PSC's informational testimony, a good handle and grasp of what's happening as relates to geography in the state, because all of us understand our communities, our districts, and we know where certain strongholds reside in certain zip codes. And so I believe that that would really help us accomplish what's being sought here.
Okay, thank you so much. Are you paring this bill back to only include zip codes then? Is that what you're proposing?
Well, I'm working through amendments right now and working with our office and with the PSC, and I will have that to the committee.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I do not see any further questions. That concludes Bill House Bill 642. We'll turn to House Bill 674, Delegate Morgan, Public Service Commission, full costs and benefits analysis of sources of electricity generation. If you have a panel or anything, feel free to bring them up.
Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, to the best committee out here, I'm Todd B. Morgan, and I'm presenting to you today Bill 674. It's a bipartisan pro-ratepayer energy bill. It has also been filed over in the Senate as a same thing, and it's bipartisan. And this morning, Jacobs made me go to breakfast and have pancakes. And there must have been something in the blueberries because my lips are all swelled up. And I'm not speaking very clear, so I'm going to try to go slow so you can all understand me. As we start now. Okay, Maryland is in the middle of a serious and ongoing energy discussion in 2026. Electricity demand across the region continues to rise, driven in part by data center development in neighboring Virginia and by Maryland's electrification policies. At the same time, the retirement of coal and oil generation facilities has reduced in-state dispatchable generation without adequate replacement. The result is higher prices and growing reliability concerns. During the 26-27 capacity auction conducted by PJM Interconnection, prices increased dramatically compared to the previous year. PJM also warned that our region could face significant capacity shortage. Our constituents feel this every month on their electrical bills. They deserve transparency about different energy sources truly cost and what benefits this provides. HB 674 requires the Public Service Commission to conduct a full cost and benefit analysis of electricity generations in the state, including natural gas, nuclear, offshore wind, and energy storage. By December 1st, 2027, the Commission must report its findings and policy recommendations to the Senate Education, Energy, and Environment Committee and the House Environment and Transportation Committee. The study is intended to give the General Assembly objective, data-driven information to guide future energy policy decisions. Now, we haven't learned this yet in our 6 lessons. It took me a couple weekends to try to figure out how to digest it. So currently, many energy comparisons rely on what is called levelized cost of electricity, or LCOE. This looks at the average cost to generate electricity from a specific technology over time. While useful, it does not capture the entire picture. LCOE does not often account for intermittency, when power generation depends on weather or the time of day. Non-dispatchability, when a source cannot be turned on or off to meet demand. The cost of backup generation, the cost of storage, grid integration and reliability expenses. For example, intermittent energy sources often need dependable backup power to keep electricity flowing when they are not producing. Those extra costs are not always included in simple comparisons between power sources. 1 megawatt of intermittent power is not the same as 1 megawatt of power that is available whenever it is needed. Extra infrastructure and reserve capacity are often required, and those added costs are ultimately passed on to the customers. HB 674 directs the Commission to go beyond basic LCOE and evaluate the full system cost and benefits, including reliability, affordability, and overall impact to ratepayers. To be clear, this bill is not a criticism of renewable energy or specific technologies. It does not mandate changes in our energy mix. It simply asks for a comprehensive, transparent analysis so that future decisions are based on complete information. So in conclusion, for all you baseball fans out there, I understand pitchers and catchers reported a couple weeks ago. So a little analogy with my testimony. I got the chairman's attention right now. That's good. So you heard me start my testimony with why. Why he's in left field. We all know this because this committee is about to make critical decisions. Because he's in center field. Because we have a full plate of because having a full plate of information matters. We can't be calling balls and strikes without seeing the whole field. Who's the beneficiary? Who's on first? We all are. We gather broader, better information. Everyone wins, especially the ratepayers. A clear snapshot of the nuances of electrical generation at every level puts us in a stronger position. What's the goal? What's on second? Better data. For 3 years, we've been told to follow the science. Now we have the opportunity to collect more detailed data and evaluate carefully as we make decisions. Is it perfect? I don't know. Third base. But if we aren't willing to keep turning over the stones, we'll never find out what's underneath. Since the beginning of the session, we've been learning more and more about energy and electrical gentrification. This is simply another tool in our toolbox. We need this today. He's catching. The opportunities are right in front of us to do the right thing in the right place at the right time. And that leads us to tomorrow. He's pitching. The future starts now, and we're at the forefront of shaping it. In 2026, energy policy is one of the most significant issues before this body. Members of this committee bring different perspectives on how Maryland should generate electricity. While we may disagree on the path forward, we share a common responsibility protecting Maryland ratepayers. Before we commit to additional long-term policies, mandates, or subsidies, we should understand the full economic impact of each energy source. HB 674 is a common step approach. It prioritizes affordability, grid reliability, and transparency. Most of all, it puts our constituents first. So let's play ball, and I request a favorable report for HB 674. Thank you, and I have some panelists who would also like to address the subject.
Delegate Costello, before we get to your panelists, I just have one question. Who's on first?
Who's on first? I don't know. You forgot to ask the question. Who's in right field?
Who's in right field?
Nobody. I don't know. Third base. And who's at shortstop?
No. All right, we better move on.
I'm on first. I'm ready to go, boss.
Let's go ahead with your panelists.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Hannah Allen here today on behalf of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. We certainly appreciate the sponsor for introducing this bill. There's, as you know, a lot of debate over how Maryland should meet our growing energy and generation needs, what resources we rely on, how quickly we transition, and what that means for cost and reliability. Businesses are increasingly focused on whether the system can meet future demand without extreme price spikes or reliability issues. That's why energy issues have really bubbled up for our members' top priorities, especially this session, because the decisions made on how to address these issues have direct real-world impact on costs, on competitiveness, and on long-term planning. We want to see cost-effective solutions that enhance grid reliability while also giving policymakers a clear understanding of the trade-offs associated with different generation resources. So the one amendment I'll mention that we have sent to the delegate and then the Senate sponsor's office is we would like to see solar energy included in the analysis. Solar is already a part of Maryland's energy generation mix, right, and policy landscape, so I think including that would paint a full picture and more accurate picture of where the state is. But overall, we do see this bill as a smart, responsible step toward data-driven energy policy, and one that will be especially helpful as cost and reliability questions continue to come up and get discussed. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Grayson Middleton here with Delmarva Chicken Association. Delegate Morgan wanted me to talk about some of the impacts that the rising electricity costs have had on our farmers on the Eastern Shore. A lot of people forget that electricity has now become actually by far the biggest input cost for chicken farmers on the Eastern Shore. And they've seen it on average throughout the last decade, I think 6% increases annually in their rates, and their rates have consistently been 7% higher than surrounding states. So mostly here to say me too, but just thought that I would add that caveat. Thank you.
Thank you all. We have a question from Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
I have some more panelists too for you, David.
I'm sorry?
I have some more panelists for you too.
Okay. Well, just very quickly, because it was mentioned, I'm sorry, I forgot your name on the far left.
Hannah with the Maryland Chamber.
Hannah, why is solar, or why did you stipulate only for nuclear and everything else? Why is solar not included? Why is hydro not included? What am I missing, Delegate?
I think what she asked.
Delegate, no, because Hannah brought it up, which is what I was talking. I was like, how come solar isn't in here? So I guess the question is to the delegate, right? Is it, why do you have only, it's all specified, only natural gas, only, like, why?
It was an error on my part and no omission. So when they ask for solar, I have no trouble with adding solar to that equation.
Okay, when you would be open to a more broad definition of generation and storage?
I think so.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
And thank you, Hannah, very much. You brought up exactly what I was thinking. Thank you.
Okay, we do have some other favorable witnesses. Ryan Snow, Maryland Farm Bureau, Jeannie Hadaway-Riccio, Talbot Waterman Association, Alex Stevens, Institute for Energy Research.
Good afternoon, Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Ryan Snow. I'm here today to represent the 7,000 members of Maryland Farm Bureau, and also for my colleague, Jeannie Hadaway-Riccio, on behalf of 500 Talbot Watermen. Maryland agriculture operates on narrow margins and depends on reliable, affordable electricity. Irrigation, poultry house ventilation, dairy farm cooling, grain drying, and on farm processing run around the clock. Even modest increases in per kilowatt hour rates or new demand charges directly impact farm profitability and regional competitiveness. That same principle applies to the more than 500 Talbot County watermen whose livelihood depends on stable operating costs to remain competitive. Watermen serve as stewards of the bay, investing in replenishment, restoration, and sustainable practices that strengthen both the environment and the economy. The seafood industry contributes nearly $600 million annually to our economy, with Talbot Watermen supporting wholesalers, processors, restaurants, and small business throughout the state and beyond. It's no coincidence that Maryland State Seal bears the farmer and the fisherman side by side, a recognition to those who harvest from the land and the water that are foundational to our state's economy and identity. When energy costs rise without full transparency, it is those very producers on the State Seal who may feel the impact the most. Farmers and watermen make capital decisions based on full input cost, long-term sustainability, and risk management. They make those decisions, and we feel that Maryland's Energy should have the same exact approach with this transparent cost analysis. So for those reasons, we respectfully request a favorable report. Thank you.
Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the Environment and Transportation Committee, thank you for the invitation to speak with you today about the affordability of electricity for Maryland residents. My name is Alex Stevens. I'm the Manager of Policy and Communications at the Institute for Energy Research. According to the latest data from the EIA, Maryland's electricity rates are 35% higher than those of other states in the EIA's South Atlantic region and 20% higher than the national average. Additionally, research from Berkeley National Laboratory shows that Maryland's electricity rates have increased faster than inflation. In December 2025, I co-authored an IER report examining state trends in electricity affordability. Our findings align with Berkeley Lab research showing that policies such as renewable portfolio standards and net metering raise retail rates in states that adopt them aggressively. Maryland's RPS currently requires utilities to procure an increasing share of electricity from renewable sources with the current target of 50% by 2030. State also maintains one of the nation's most aggressive net metering programs, providing full retail rate credits for excess energy exported to the grid. In essence, these policies represent state efforts to favor certain generation technologies over others, resulting in increased costs that are passed on to ratepayers. The levelized full system cost approach outlined in HB 674 is a practical framework for examining the costs associated with different generating technologies. It incorporates the broader costs required to deliver reliable demand-matching electricity across an entire system, including costs associated with system responsibility, intermittency, balancing, and integration. Focusing on the full system cost of electricity is the right strategy as it reflects the amount that we all pay through our utility bills and through our taxes. Adopting HB 674 would provide Marylanders with transparent insights into how policy choices truly affect their electricity bills, focusing on what matters most, reliable and affordable service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a question from Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. For Alex Stevens, what are the top policy issues should we be looking at for affordability for Maryland residents? And the second part of that question, how does this study relate to this?
I think the main concern here is the policy path that Maryland has pursued has really pushed renewable energy very aggressively. The RPS targets are mandating intermittent generation be pushed onto the grid. And everywhere that you look where these policies have been pursued, you see rising rates and you see increased reliability concerns. So RPS would be something that I would certainly look at. Now, how it relates to this study in particular, across the country, everywhere we talk about electricity rates, we're told that wind and solar are cost competitive and are affordable generating sources. That doesn't add up with what we're seeing in utility bills, right? So as was mentioned in the initial testimony, what is happening there is people are using the levelized cost of electricity metric to base their claim that wind and solar are cost competitive and affordable, when that metric doesn't account for things like balancing costs, for the fact that these sources are intermittent. There's costs associated with operating the whole grid that don't show up in that metric that this study would bring to light. And I think for Maryland, residents of Maryland and everybody who is concerned about the affordability issue here, it's important to have a transparent study that takes every factor into account.
Thank you.
Okay, I do not see any further questions. We do have a virtual favorable witness, Paige Lambermont, Competitive Enterprise Institute.
Chairman Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, and members of the Energy and Transportation Committee. My name is Paige Lambermont, and I'm a research fellow in the Center for Energy and Environment at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. CEI is a nonpartisan public policy research organization focused on free market solutions to public policy problems. I'm grateful for the chance to speak to you today about House Bill 674 and the opportunity to protect Maryland ratepayers. No electricity source exists in a vacuum. The power grid is an interconnected system that exists to deliver electricity from where it is generated to where it is consumed. This happens on a near instantaneous basis. It only works if power is available when it's demanded and in the correct quantities. Intermittent sources, including offshore wind, struggle to provide the degree of consistency that the power grid needs to operate. To have the level of necessary consistency, there needs to be backup generation, often in the form of natural gas peaker plants. An understanding of the costs of various power sources that fails to take this into account is sorely lacking. Maryland has an incredibly high renewable portfolio standard that requires over 50% of the state's power come from renewable sources by 2030. Maryland also has a high power price, 21.34 cents per kilowatt hour in November of 2025, compared to an average of 15.86 cents per kilowatt hour for other South Atlantic states. House Bill 674 would require an analysis of the costs of various sources of electricity, gas, nuclear, and offshore wind. This analysis would calculate each source's levelized full system cost of generation rather than the cost of generating a unit of power in a vacuum, as many levelized cost of electricity models do. This analysis would accurately account for the costs that intermittency imposes so that policymakers are able to understand the true costs and benefits of various electricity sources. This is especially important when considering policies such as RPS standards that impose requirements for the use of a specific type of generating source. Government should not adopt policies such as RPS standards that choose winners and losers in the electricity space. I urge you to take this opportunity to accurately account for the cost to Maryland ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, I'll call up our favorable amendment witnesses. We have Alex Pavlik from the Future of Energy Initiative and Benjamin Baker from the Maryland Public Service Commission. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair. My name is Alex Pavlik. I'm a PhD engineer from Severna Park and the chair of the Future of Energy Initiative. My advocacy is numbers. For the past 15 years, I've been coming down to Annapolis, try to persuade Maryland to take an engineering approach to climate change. In my world, first we characterize objective fact. What are the constraints? Then we make subjective value choices. We keep them separate. This is a good bill. It's the closest I've seen to an engineering study. But the phrase cost-benefit analysis causes me to cringe. You start talking about benefits, policymakers end up throwing in the social cost of carbon, which is a political judgment that's $1 zillion under Biden and $0 under Trump. The first step here, which you're really confronted with, is an objective assessment of fact that has not yet been done. I direct my amendments to this bill to provide the specificity necessary to task this study as an engineering concept study. We have not designed the system yet. This is not a system design. This is an architecture design. We have building blocks. We've got wind, solar, storage. And what needs to be done is to figure out how do they fit together to keep the lights on. Work through hour by hour during the course of the year. What's it take to keep for a reliable system? To do that, we use concept models. In my experience, my concept model keeps it simple. The art is to judge what metrics you need to include in order to distinguish between technologies. Intermittency is a key one here. And you ignore what is common to all technologies like transmission. The chart in my written testimony shows a result of concept modeling. That scenario was to reliably power PJM in 2021 with just wind photovoltaics and batteries. It is a feasible concept, but you're not going to like the price. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, Ben Baker, Senior Commission Advisor at the Maryland Public Service Commission. We request a favorable with amendment on HB 674. The Commission will need a consultant to do this study if we are tasked with it, but we do think it would be useful in terms of helping us think through the strategies of how we will attract additional generation to Maryland at a lower cost and meet state climate goals. We do believe that amendments are needed, one, to be more technology agnostic, as was discussed earlier. Additionally, we would like a definition of levelized full system cost of electricity be added, and also the flexibility through this study to also look at other models to ensure that we are capturing the breadth of studies that kind of help give us these, I would say, data points to have this discussion around the various cost of energy. With that, I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a question from Delegate Frazier-Hidalgo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Baker, thank you very much for coming up. Just a quick question. When you say, what would the ratepayer note, or what would the fiscal note, but from the PSC's perspective, what would that cost the Public Service Commission?
I'll need to double check. It's either going to be 2 or 5. We would need a consultant. Basically, to run this kind of a study, you will need people that have certain, I would say, models that help you run dispatchable. They run economic models on wood generation dispatch, and you're going to build out different grid scenarios to try and come up with different cost scenarios if you're trying to test actual intermittency. So you have to have specialized tools to basically make these assumptions. This would be the kind of thing where that Strategic Energy Planning Office, the SEPO office, that you all are looking to get stood up, this would be something maybe one day they could do for you once they're actually in place. Yeah, but basically you need experts and you need tools that we do not have in order to run this kind of a study.
Okay, but from a dollar amount, you don't have a dollar in your head, or can you get back to the committee?
I'll get back to you. Let me get back to you.
Just a range, something that we can.
My range would be 200,000 to 500,000 right now, but let me I'll get back to the committee with an official number.
Thank you for that clarification.
Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hesitate to even ask, but I have to throw this out to the gentleman from the Public Service Commission. So assuming we pass this bill, the report doesn't get back to us for about a year and 10 months. We need relief now, and we've heard from the PSC, we've heard from PJM, we know a lot about reliability. And although this issue tends to be very complicated, a lot of it is more simple math. Because we know about the efficiency and reliability of a lot of these sources, do we need another study on this? Can't we make some broad determinations about what sources are efficient, and we could start to lean on those now? And I ask this because I actually had discussions with a lot of members of the body who lamented not taking action 10 years ago when these issues were studied, were discussed a bit. Had we done that, we'd not be in this position. So I just feel obligated to ask the question, do we need the study? Don't we know broadly the sources from which we need to pull?
So I would say this study is more of a tool. This would be a future planning study. This is not something that, one, timeline, yes, timeline's not coming out till into 2027, or beginning, sorry, end. Also, this is more of a future-looking thing that's just going to be a tool to talk about. I mean, the levelized system cost study or a levelized cost study is simply talking about a comparison between cost of generation resources, to have policy discussions or to think through generally high level what would the various cost of pursuing certain resources maybe be. And also, if we're talking about renewables, the cost intermittency is going to impose upon the grid is going to be very dependent upon the resource mix and how much of it's actually there. So at low levels, we're probably not talking much. At higher levels, then we probably need to start thinking about how you deal with that intermittency. And so this, to me, is more of a longitudinal view of the world. In terms of short-term actions, yes, I think we're already taking some of those actions through like the Next Generation's Energy Act, where we ran a solicitation to allow certain types of generation to have an expedited CPCN. We're talking through various procurement strategies. Frankly, when you're talking about a need for capacity, they all are going to bring different forms of it. Some will bring more, some will bring less. It really is going to come down to what attracts them to the market. And if we are as a policy body, or you as the policy body, we as an implementer, are going to take certain actions, this would be the kind of thing to help us maybe inform how much money I should throw at the solution versus letting like the private market deal with it. And so, yeah, I guess the way to answer that is this is not going to be the tool I would lean on in the next couple of years. This is more longitudinal discussions about future policies. In terms of the current state of the market, that's more or less what actions we have in place now and what can we do in the short term.
Okay, thank you.
Could I offer a comment on that?
Actually, he was asking the PSC a question, so thank you very much. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 674 and all the bill hearings for today. We are going to turn to our moment in ENT history with Delegate Stewart.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Great to be back. It has been 37 years since the last physical fight broke out in what was then called the Environmental Matters Committee. The two combatants were Delegate Tony E. Fulton and Delegate Lawrence Lamott, and it broke out over actually a Medicaid funding bill. We no longer have that issue in this committee, or you guys no longer have that issue in this committee, but Delegate Fulton wanted to hold the bill on Medicaid funding. He hadn't had a chance to look at all the amendments. Delegate Lamott responded, he took objection to this. The two of them slammed their books down. This was all reported in the Sun. They actually had books then. And they rose and they went out into the front here, nose to nose, and started arguing. It then devolved into a shoving match, and the then vice chair had to step in to break them up. Now, like every good disagreement, this was resolved 2 nights later at the Legislative Follies, where Delegate Fulton and Delegate Lamont did a mock boxing match and then sang about their enduring friendship. So colleagues, I know that now with energy in the committee, tensions might get a little bit high this session. So if tempers do flare up, let me just advise you, stretch first, hydrate, go easy on Delegate Naraki. And if things do come to physical blows, hopefully any remaining tensions can be resolved in the old Annapolis way via a skit at the committee dinner this year. That was your moment in history.
Thank you, Delegate Stewart. Does anybody have any questions about that license plate bill while he's here? Delegate Stewart, we miss you. We're happy to have you here to visit anytime. And with that, we'll turn to subcommittee announcements. Chair Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. NRO will meet, it's 2:30 now. Let's meet at 2:40. We'll be discussing about 4 bills, and we should be about an hour, so thank you.
Chair Fraser-Dago.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Boyce, you think about an hour, so if we were to go at 4 o'clock or 4:15, do you think that would be safe? Okay, why don't we say 4 o'clock? For energy. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thanks, everybody. Work hard in your subcommittees. Oh, sorry, Chair Stein. I apologize.
That's all right. Environment Subcommittee will be meeting tomorrow after bill hearings.
Environment will meet tomorrow after bill hearings. All right. Thanks, everybody.